The roar of heavy machinery echoed across the Yukon Valley. Two of them, 250 and 2600. Hook him up, hold him in. That was the voice of Tony Beets, commanding, confident, and unmistakable. For more than a decade, the Gold Rush audience has watched this man turn frozen earth into fortune. He isn't just another miner on a reality show. He's the benchmark of consistency, the embodiment of grit. His reputation was built on three things: unfiltered honesty, relentless work, and an iron-tight family bond that powered every ounce of gold he ever pulled from the ground. But lately, something changed. Viewers noticed a quieter Tony, fewer scenes in the driver's seat, less thunder, more reflection. Rumors started swirling through the Gold Rush community. Was the Viking slowing down? Was something wrong? Weeks went by with silence, until Tony finally decided to speak. And what he said confirmed what fans had feared: a new chapter had begun for the man who once seemed unstoppable. To millions, Tony Beets is more than a miner. He's an icon of determination. His blunt words and fearless attitude made him a television legend, but his story started long before the cameras arrived. Born in the Netherlands, Tony's road to fortune began far from the snowfields of the Yukon. His reputation as the Viking came later. First came hard labor, struggle, and a restless drive for something greater. When he arrived in Canada with little more than a work ethic and stubborn will, he turned that gamble into one of the most respected careers in modern gold mining. Unlike fleeting reality TV fame, Tony's success was carved in rock and diesel. His knowledge of mining machinery and men earned him respect from both crews and competitors. To fans, he became the beating heart of Gold Rush, the man who reminded everyone that fortune favors the fearless. Tony Beets was born on December 15, 1959, in the tiny Dutch village of Widdeens, a quiet farming community where hard work wasn't a choice, it was survival. His childhood was built on discipline and dawns that came too early. While other kids dreamed of adventure, Tony was up before sunrise tending to animals, repairing equipment, and plowing fields. His father's health began to fail when Tony was still young, forcing him to shoulder adult responsibilities long before most teenagers even thought about work. Those long days shaped him and hardened him. He learned that excuses don't grow crops and comfort never built a future. Still, life in Widdeens was predictable, a small world with small chances. Tony Beets could already see his path laid out before him: inherit the farm, live modestly, and fade quietly into the same soil he'd spent his life tending. But that wasn't enough for him. He wanted more than survival. He wanted challenge. He wanted space. He wanted risk. By his late teens, that restless fire had grown too strong to ignore. When he looked at a map, one place stood out: Canada, a country vast enough to match his ambition. A land of miners, builders, and dreamers. So, with little more than determination and a stubborn heart, he made the choice that would define his life. He would leave home and start over half a world away. Tony landed in Canada in his early 20s, barely speaking the language, armed only with a willingness to work. The comfort of village life was gone, replaced by icy winds and strangers. But he didn't flinch. He took whatever jobs he could: construction, farmhand, machinery operator, slowly learning English and earning enough to keep moving forward. Eventually, he headed north to the Yukon, the land of frozen rivers, unpredictable weather, and endless possibilities. Most who tried their luck there quit. Tony didn't. He saw opportunity where others saw exhaustion. He shoveled gravel, repaired broken machines, and learned the trade from the ground up. Life in the Yukon wasn't glamorous. It was mud, diesel, and bone-deep fatigue. But Tony thrived in it. Each setback became a lesson. Each frozen morning another test he refused to fail. That decision, to trade the green fields of Holland for the gold-stained dirt of the Yukon, was the spark that would ignite everything to come. Years passed. Tony saved money, gained experience, and learned every corner of the mining business. Eventually, he had enough grit and enough gold to launch his own operation. No longer a worker, now the boss. Where others saw risk, Tony saw calculation. He was a miner who believed success wasn't luck. It was logistics, timing, and a refusal to quit. When Gold Rush arrived on the Discovery Channel, the producers found in Tony Beets something rare: authenticity. He first appeared in Season 2, helping the Hoffman crew. One episode was all it took for fans to notice the difference. Tony wasn't playing a part. He was the part, a real miner who swore like a sailor and worked like a machine. Soon, he wasn't just another face on the show, he became one of its pillars. Viewers loved his no-nonsense leadership, his roaring commands echoing over the engines, his mix of humor and raw authority. And when he decided to resurrect an abandoned monster of mining history, a massive dredge from a forgotten era, the world watched in disbelief. Everyone said it would fail. Too risky, too expensive, too Tony. But he proved them wrong. Piece by piece, the Viking rebuilt the relic, and when that dredge roared back to life, it didn't just pull gold from the ground, it cemented Tony Beets' legend. For all his grit and thunder, there's one thing that's kept Tony Beets grounded through every storm: Family. Behind the beard, the roar of engines, and the iron tone, there's a man whose empire wasn't built alone. It was carved by a family that worked, fought, and thrived together in the unforgiving Yukon. Tony's story isn't just about gold. It's about loyalty, love, and the kind of teamwork that can't be scripted. Before the fame, before the cameras, there was Minnie. Tony met her back in the Netherlands when they were just teenagers living next door to each other. What started as a friendship slowly turned into a bond that could survive anything, even the wild unknown of the Canadian frontier. When Tony decided to leave Holland in search of a better future, Minnie didn't hesitate. She packed her life, left her home, and stood by his side through every freezing morning, every risk, every dream. Together, they built not just a business, but a life. In the Beets family, Minnie isn't the woman behind the man, she's the woman beside him. While Tony battles mud and machinery, she handles the numbers, the management, and the chaos that comes with running a multi-million-dollar mining operation. She keeps the books balanced and the business alive. When she steps into a room, even Tony listens. Viewers of Gold Rush have seen her step up during tough calls, calm, precise, and fiercely loyal. If Tony is the engine, Minnie is the control panel that keeps it from overheating. Tony and Minnie's partnership gave rise to something even greater, a family legacy. Together they raised 4 children: Monica, Kevin, Mike, and Bianca. Each grew up surrounded by the roar of machines and the scent of diesel. Childhood meant long days, heavy machinery, and learning that success doesn't come with comfort. Monica Beets, the youngest of the 3 working in mining, became one of the show's most recognizable faces. She started young, learning directly under her father's unflinching supervision. Today, she runs equipment, leads crews, and proves every season that she's every bit her father's daughter, tough, sharp, and fearless. Kevin Beets, the eldest son, is the family's technical mind. Calm where Tony is loud, measured where Tony is impulsive, Kevin often leads major operations, maintaining machinery and making sure every ounce of production runs smooth. He's the quiet strategist to Tony's bold general. Mike Beets, their other son, works right alongside them, strong, focused, dependable. And while Bianca Beets, the youngest, chooses to stay away from the spotlight, she remains an integral part of the family's close-knit world. Together, they've transformed what started as a small mining operation into a family empire. Every member has a role, every role matters, and every success is shared, because that's how the Beets family has always done it. The Beets family built their empire on one principle: do it yourself, do it right. They rarely depend on outsiders. Tony made sure that every critical part of the business could be handled within the family. From operations to finances, logistics to leadership, their main base sits deep in the Klondike region, a land steeped in history and rich with gold. Over the years, Tony expanded his reach, purchasing claims, upgrading fleets, and investing in massive dredges that most miners would never dare touch. He wasn't interested in taking the easy road. He was interested in results. Minnie managed the money, Kevin and Mike handled the crews, Monica kept the team grounded, and Tony made the big calls, the ones that could make or break a season. The results speak for themselves. Season after season, the Beets operation has been among the most productive on Gold Rush. Tony isn't the type to rely on luck. He relies on grit, planning, and a little bit of stubbornness. He's the kind of man who'll rebuild a century-old dredge just because everyone said it couldn't be done, and then prove them wrong on national television. That dredge project became one of the most memorable moments in Gold Rush history. It wasn't just about profit, it was about legacy. That old machine, once left to rust in the Yukon cold, became a living symbol of Tony's philosophy: if it can be done, do it. If it can't, do it anyway. Tony Beets doesn't chase gold, he earns it, and he does it his way: bold, direct, and sometimes intimidating. His crews know exactly what to expect from him. No sugarcoating, no shortcuts. If something goes wrong, he says it straight. If someone slacks, they hear about it. But when they succeed, he's the first to acknowledge it. It's this mix of toughness and fairness that's made him both respected and feared. In an industry where men quit faster than machinery breaks, Tony's consistency is legendary. To his fans, Tony is the embodiment of the old-school miner spirit. To his family, he's the man who never asks them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. And to his critics, he's proof that fortune still belongs to those who have the guts to get their hands dirty. For years, Tony Beets was the one constant on Gold Rush. No matter how many crews came and went, no matter who struck rich or who failed, there was always Tony, unshaken, unyielding, and utterly reliable. But in recent seasons, something felt different. The Viking of the Yukon, the man known for his booming orders and iron will, began to fade slightly from the frame. He wasn't absent, but something about him had changed. His voice sounded softer, his movements slower. The camera no longer caught him on the driver's seat of a dozer as often. Instead, he was seen standing back watching. At first, fans chalked it up to editing. Maybe the producers were just shifting focus. But as episode after episode aired, longtime viewers couldn't shake the feeling that the Tony they knew, the man who once ran every site like a battlefield commander, was stepping back. Then came the comments. Social media lit up. Tony doesn't look like himself. Why is he letting the kids handle everything now? He looks thinner. Tired maybe. Facebook groups, Reddit threads, even fan forums that had been silent for years suddenly buzzed with theories. Some said age was catching up with him. Others whispered about health issues, or that he might be preparing to walk away from the mines altogether. And a few, the more optimistic ones, suggested something else, that maybe Tony was doing what few strong men ever allow themselves to do: trust someone else to carry the torch. Tony Beets was never the type to explain himself. He believed actions spoke louder than words, and in the Yukon, words didn't move dirt, machines did. But to fans, his silence felt heavier this time. No updates, no interviews, just rumors piling up like gravel on a cold hillside. Even his presence on Gold Rush felt quieter. He wasn't barking at crews or throwing wrenches at broken equipment like before. Instead, he'd stand beside his kids, Monica, Kevin, or Mike, letting them take charge. And while the world saw this as Tony slowing down, what was really happening behind the scenes was far more profound. After decades of grueling work, long nights, freezing mornings, and endless machinery battles, Tony had earned the right to breathe. His body, after 40 years of labor, was demanding it. But more importantly, he was beginning to see something his younger self never would have: the value of stepping back, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of wisdom. He had built this empire with his own hands, but he wanted to make sure it wouldn't collapse when those hands eventually let go. The internet, however, doesn't do patience. Every small change became evidence of something dramatic. One user posted, "He's probably retiring, the kids are taking over." Another replied, "No way. Tony's too stubborn to retire, maybe he's sick." Then came YouTube thumbnails. Fan made videos with titles like "The Real Reason Tony Beets Disappeared" and "Gold Rush Without the Viking." Every photo, every frame from the show was dissected. His posture, his expression, even the tone of his voice. It was speculation on overdrive, and yet through it all, Tony stayed silent. Not a word on social media, not a statement from Discovery. For fans who had grown used to seeing Tony's no-nonsense presence week after week, that silence was louder than any statement could be. Then, finally, after weeks of mounting rumors, Tony broke his silence. And true to form, he didn't do it with drama or fanfare. He did it his way: calm, direct, and brutally honest. In an interview filmed near his Yukon claim, Tony sat in his usual spot, a weathered chair, coffee mug in hand, machinery growling faintly in the background. His face was lined, his eyes tired but sharp. He looked straight at the camera and said, "People been talking, so let's clear this up. I ain't quitting, I'm just not 20 anymore." Simple. Straightforward. Perfectly Tony. He went on to explain that yes, things were changing, but not for the worse. After decades of being the first one on site and the last to leave, he'd started to hand more control to his kids. Not because he was done, but because he wanted them to learn to lead the Beets legacy themselves. He admitted that the years of working in brutal Yukon conditions had taken their toll. "The body slows down," he said, "but the mind never stops working. I still love mining." He added, "But I don't need to be in every machine anymore. I got kids for that now." He smiled when he said it. That familiar, sly Tony grin that always carried a hint of challenge. And just like that, the rumors stopped being whispers of worry and turned into words of respect. What fans didn't know was that Tony's shift wasn't sudden. It was part of a plan years in the making. The Beets operation was always a family affair, and Tony had been quietly preparing his children to carry the load. He knew the day would come when he couldn't do it all himself. So, he taught them everything. Every trick. Every calculation, every lesson he learned through decades of trial and error. Kevin mastered the technical side, engines, mechanics, repairs. Monica learned the leadership side, managing people, handling crises, reading the land. Mike handled the logistics, keeping everything running smoothly when chaos threatened to take over. In Tony's eyes, this wasn't slowing down. It was leveling up, evolving the Beets operation from a one-man powerhouse to a generational dynasty. He once said, "If I can step back and it still runs without me yelling, that means I did my job right." And that's exactly what he was doing, passing down the Viking spirit, one lesson at a time. When Tony's comments finally aired, fans flooded the internet with support. "You've earned the right to take a break, Tony. Let the next generation shine. Viking, respect to the man who built it all." Even fellow miners and castmates from Gold Rush chimed in, praising his dedication and acknowledging the inevitable, that no one works at full throttle forever. For years, Tony Beets was the immovable force on Gold Rush. Now, he was proving that true strength isn't just about working harder. It's about knowing when to hand over the reins and trust that what you've built will last. Today, when Tony walks through his claim, it's different. The machines still roar, the gold still glitters, but there's a sense of peace around him. He doesn't shout as much. He observes more. He's still the Viking. But now, he's also the architect of a legacy that's bigger than one man. And as the next generation, his own children, carry forward the Beets name, the message is clear: you can measure gold in ounces, but you measure greatness in what you leave behind. The Yukon has always been a land that rewards only the relentless. It doesn't care who you are, what you've done, or how famous you might be. The cold doesn't bend. The earth doesn't forgive. The gold doesn't care. And yet, one man, Tony Beets, managed to carve his name into that frozen ground and turn it into something unforgettable. For years, we've watched him yell over roaring engines, drive through storms, and wrestle broken dredges back to life. But behind all that noise and grit, there's been something quieter, a message that took decades to reveal itself. That success isn't just about gold, it's about endurance. It's about building something that lasts long after your own hands grow tired. Tony Beets came to the Yukon as a dreamer with nothing but muscle, stubbornness, and a Dutch accent that cut through the northern air. What he built here wasn't luck, it was legacy. He transformed a modest operation into a gold mining empire run by family, not by outsiders. Every decision, every claim, every risk was driven by instinct and raw experience. He once said, "You can't buy experience. You have to earn it, one mistake at a time." That's the foundation he built his life on, and that's the foundation he passed down to his kids. For Monica, Kevin, Mike, and even Bianca, who chooses to stay out of the spotlight, mining isn't just a business. It's family heritage. It's the sound of home, the smell of oil, the rattle of steel, the quiet pride of knowing they're continuing something their father started with bare hands and a wild dream. If you step onto a Beets claim today, you'll see something remarkable. Tony's not always in the driver's seat anymore, but his presence is everywhere. You'll hear Kevin shouting over the engines, orchestrating machines the same way Tony once did. You'll see Monica climbing into a loader, her face streaked with dust, her movements sharp and sure. You'll catch Minnie in the office trailer, balancing numbers while keeping everyone's tempers in check. This isn't a business, it's a living, breathing legacy. Each of them carries a piece of Tony's fire. Each of them continues what he started, not because they have to, but because they want to. When Tony handed over more control, he wasn't retiring. He was proving that real power isn't about control. It's about trust. And that's a lesson only time could teach him. When Tony confirmed that he was stepping back a little, fans across the world braced themselves for the worst, a goodbye. But that goodbye never came. Instead, Tony reappeared, not as the fiery commander yelling orders from his excavator, but as the proud father watching his empire run smoothly without him shouting a word. He still checks the ground, still inspects the dredges, still shows up before most men wake. But he's learned to let the next generation carry the noise while he enjoys the view. For fans, this shift wasn't an ending. It was evolution. The Viking wasn't fading away. He was transforming. And perhaps that's what makes Tony Beets different from anyone else on Gold Rush. He didn't just dig for gold in the ground. He mined wisdom out of life itself. When people think of Tony Beets, they think of the gold, the numbers, the ounces, the fortune. But his real treasure has always been something else. It's the family dinners after 14-hour shifts. It's the laughter echoing through the camp when the machines finally shut down. It's the pride in seeing his children thrive in the very place that once tried to break him. He once said, "The gold's nice, but it's not what keeps you out here. It's the challenge, the satisfaction of doing what most people can't." That's Tony in one line. Never chasing money, always chasing mastery. His life proves that wealth isn't measured in bars or ounces. It's measured in legacy, in loyalty, and in the people who keep your story alive when you're gone. In the mining world, Tony Beets is more than just a success story. He's a standard. His name has become synonymous with courage, persistence, and unfiltered truth. He never played a role for the cameras. What you saw was what you got. The good, the bad, and the gold covered in mud. He fought storms, broke engines, built dredges, and outlasted doubt. He showed millions that you don't need to be born into wealth to create it. You just need the will to dig deeper than everyone else. And now, even as the years catch up and his pace slows, his impact doesn't. The Beets family continues to mine, to lead, to inspire, carrying the Viking flame into the next generation. Tony once said in an interview, half joking but entirely true, "People think I'm tough because I yell, but yelling don't come from anger, it comes from caring. If I didn't care, I'd be quiet." That's Tony Beets, The man who roars not out of rage, but out of passion. A man who measures worth in effort, loyalty, and backbone. He's built his legend one shovel, one storm, and 1 ounce at a time, and through every triumph and every setback, he's never lost sight of what matters most: the family beside him and the land beneath him. When you look at Tony Beets' life, it's tempting to focus on the gold, the machines, the fame. But the real lesson buried underneath all that dirt is simpler and far more valuable. It's about endurance, about legacy, about building something that lasts longer than your own lifetime. Because one day, the machines will rust, the claims will run dry, and the cameras will move on. But the story, the Beets story, will still echo across the Yukon. A story about a man who came from nothing, turned risk into reward, and left behind something more enduring than gold. Tony Beets didn't just strike gold, he became it. Not the kind you melt, but the kind you remember. And maybe that's the real treasure in all this. Not the gold that glitters, but the grit that endures. Because legends aren't born in comfort, they're forged in struggle, sweat, and sleepless nights. Tony Beets didn't just build a mining empire, he built a reminder that no dream is too far, no land too harsh, and no challenge too great when your heart is made of iron and fire. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's still digging for their own gold. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell us in the comments, what do you think makes Tony Beets truly unforgettable? The gold, the grit, or the legacy? Until next time, keep digging, keep dreaming, and never stop chasing your own claim.